So I ended up meeting this girl. Met her at a house party that I was coincidentally throwing. Someone had just brought her there and met her there, and we hit it off there. And then we're hanging out for I only had about another 4 or 5 months left in that local area before I was coming here. I was hooked because I'd had very low self-esteem up to that point anyway. So I didn't exactly have a lot being thrown at me anyway, so I was overlooking a whole lot. I'd had a captain that lived above me that was in the Army and a lieutenant that lived beside me that was in the Army. And of course I was good friends with them, very good friends. Shortly before I left, they all pulled me up to their apartment. The captain had the lieutenant pull me up there and say, listen, we are telling you right now, this lady is using you. We are telling you. We've seen this a million times. We are telling you, this is trouble.
Did they have like hard
evidence? It was one of those situations that was so bad, apparently, that every single person around me knew it but me.
Okay.
Leave to visit them. And my own parents said, no, do not come up here. I'm telling you right now, this is trouble.
That girl's bad news.
It was really bad news. They had met her. They said, no, this is really bad news. And everyone was telling me this.
Right.
So I'm in these apartments. So I'd already started seeing, I guess, interest or certain things in other guys that were around. And she was always making a point to run off and go hang out with neighbors and stuff like that, even when I wasn't around. For whatever reason, 2 weeks before we deployed, we made the decision to get married.
Right.
Horrible, horrible decision, but that had lived across the way. And him and her were partying all the time. And he's like, yeah, I mean, they go to and from the pool. She goes over there in a bikini and then comes out fully clothed and showered and everything else. And see, they were asking her, what are you doing with the kids? Where are the kids?
Right.
You're up here partying.
Right.
You've got 3 kids in the apartment. Where are they? One of
So
his friends that she ended up was sleeping with, and then there was a guy from the old apartment complex that she had met and known before that had come over to one of the parties that she was at, and then him and her ended up disappearing down in my apartment. And they said they didn't see him leave till the next morning. After I'm back, she comes to me and says, "Hey, we're pregnant," and I was like, "We're pregnant?" She's like, "Yeah, we're pregnant." I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. I'm having my own child. I've never had one before, but that was kind of on my list of things I wanted to do, is have my own child. She ends up losing the baby while my parents happen to be in town for Thanksgiving. And they were telling her, you need to go to the emergency room. You need to get all that cleaned out or checked up or whatever they need to do. You need to go in and get that looked at. And she just refused. She had what they called a septic miscarriage. So we woke up one day and there was just blood everywhere in the bed. She had hemorrhaged everywhere and she was just shivering. So lucky. And that's what he was saying. You have no idea how close we were to losing her. If we lost her a third time, that would have been it.
Right.
And that's what he said. And then he said, by everything we can see, the baby was conceived in late July, early August. And I was like, wait a minute right there. Could there be any way that you could be off? In any way? He said, well, we could be off usually about 1 week one way or 1 week the other, but we're not usually off by that much. And so then I just kind of sat back and I was like, my God, because I didn't get back from that deployment till the middle of October, so the math doesn't even even remotely add up. She had said, hey, I'm gonna go to the store, I'll be right back. She left and she came back like the next morning. I'm like, what are you doing? You didn't go to the store? She just swore that's what it was. So I was like, I'm not doing this with you anymore. We're not doing this. I'm completely done with this. I never did anything else. So I was like, that's weird. So it come to the end and they come up and pull me aside. They're like, hey, you need to come with us. And we go up there. And that's when they tell me that I was suspected of spousal, physical, and verbal abuse and all these other things. And I was under investigation and everything, and they had told me I was not allowed to come back to my home. I was actually active duty, E5 at this point, and I was living in my car in a parking lot. I was homeless, eating at soup kitchens for food.
Before we get too carried away, I just want to ask you the question just so it's on camera and we all see it. Did you hit your wife?
Did I hit my wife?
Yeah.
I never did. No.
Never once.
Never
once.
My name is Miguel Mata, first-generation American, retired military veteran, and now full-time college student. In my lifetime, I've come to meet people from all walks of life, from every corner of the country and most parts of the world, and what I can tell you is, everyone has a story. On this channel, I plan to share those stories with you and prove that despite the differences that make each of us who we are as individuals, fundamentally, we are all the same. I believe through the common thread of overcoming challenges, caring for our loved ones, and helping our communities, the rest of us will realize that our world is actually much brighter than some would make us think. And now, to shed more light, this way, out.
You know, they're still pushing the button for this spousal abuse thing.
Well, what made matters worse, so much worse, was certain members, I guess, within somewhere in the command, certain members in the command. I got called down there to have a chat with him in the office, and he had asked me, told me to have a seat. It was no different than a chat like this, and of course he was across the table, and he had another guy over there in the corner and another guy standing behind me, and I'm like, why is everyone surrounding me right now? I had no idea. But you know, we were just chatting. He asked me a question, and I go to answer him no different than this, and then he starts just going insane. He starts yelling and saying, you know, I will jump across this desk and slam you to the floor. It will not be so funny then. You need to wipe that smirk off your face, and it's just curse words all over the place. And looking back now,
what was the conversation about?
It was about, he was asking me all this, and I guess he thought that okay, I'd already been read my rights on base by the, of course, security forces and everything. So that had already been done. So I guess since I wasn't talking to them, he thought he was going to shake it out of me somehow. Or
the truth about this whole
somehow
domestic violence thing?
I guess so.
Okay.
I guess he thought he was just going to shake it out of me or something, or I was just being. He somehow took it that I was being disrespectful in some way. And I have no idea, but yeah, I mean.
Anyway, it escalated to yelling and physical threats.
Well, it escalated actually, yes, to communicating a threat. So, I'm saying you guys are talking about sending me right now to the brig for the exact thing that you are now sitting here and doing. So you're going to be okay to do it. Yeah. You can communicate threats all day long, but you're going to communicate a threat to me about communicating a threat to somebody else.
Right.
I was like, how does that happen? But either way, it's fine. I understand tempers got hot. I do understand that upsetting things have been said. Of course, you got to probably think about where they might have been at in their head.
Right.
Everything else. Of course, I'd never been in trouble before, so I was kind of taken aback by everything. You know, I'm homeless. My dad's dying of stage 4 terminal brain cancer. I'm being threatened physically by certain people. And I was like, God, I was at rock bottom big time.
Right.
And then
and you potentially had your own cancer to deal with at this point. You potentially had that.
I'll be perfectly honest with you, that was the furthest thing from my mind.
Right.
I didn't even care.
Right.
I didn't even, it wasn't even there. There wasn't even a thought there.
So what came about from that meeting? What ended up happening?
Well, what ended up happening, I ended up getting up and walking out of there, and I'd gone to go see the ADC, and then that's when they had told me,
the Area Defense Council.
That's when they had told me, okay, listen, we're no longer interacting with them. If they call you down, tell them to call us. Tell them you do not go down there. You call
and just
us.
so it's clear that people know what we're talking about, the ADC are a group of lawyers.
Absolutely.
They're a group of lawyers on base. They're defense. They're exactly that, defense counsel.
That's right. That's right. And so then they just said no more interacting with them. You just don't do that anymore. And so then I'd gone back to the duty station, but they just had me doing odd jobs and stuff like that. Then end up going on, and things just went terribly off the rails. Trial comes, I end up getting actually put in the brig, and I'll be perfectly honest. The brig offered a great time of reflection. It's like, this is the result of the choices that you've made up to this point.
Do you mind if I back up just a little bit?
Sure.
Before you landed in the brig, there was a trial. There was a court-martial trial, right?
Correct.
And the result of that trial is how you ended up in the brig.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, so ended up there. I'm like, great, in the brig. I was like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I had been told all the way up to that point by same members where said threats have come from before, when we get done with you, you will not even get a job at McDonald's. I swear to it.
Yeah.
I will swear to it. I will see to it and make it my mission. You will not even get a job at McDonald's. And we're saying that. And saying, you're never going to lead anyone again. You're never going to be anything. You're never going to be able to have anything again. You don't understand how bad your life is over right now. And that's what everyone had been telling me. You will not be able to do anything.
I'm a little, now I'm taken aback because where was why all the hostility? Where was it coming from? Did you push somebody's buttons? Did you?
I had never had a run-in with these people up to that point, ever.
You were just a bad guy.
I'd never met them up
to
to that point. I was the guy on the other end of my ex-wife of course, ex-wife now. I was the guy at the other end. She was in there probably, they were saying, about 3 times a week for like 8 months while the whole thing was going on for like 8 months with this and that, telling this,
claims
telling
about
that,
against
telling
claims
this.
that you were
He's
doing.
driving by the house now. He's scaring me, stuff like that. And it was like, they would call me down there to rattle my cage about that. And I said, Sir, I have 30 witnesses that live around me in the dorms and in the hotels that we can easily just pack up and go walk door to door to door, and you can ask them, they're going to tell you I was there. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
And I kept telling them this. Why would she say it? And I'm like, oh, well, okay, I guess if she says it, then it must be true. I guess.
Right.
My bad. Okay, I'll stop driving by there then,
Right.
even though I wasn't doing it at all.
Right.
But they were positive that that's what was going on. But my thing about it was, what were you really trying to hide? And what I found out later was exactly what I thought it was that my said supervisor from before, she had just moved right, it just got right back together.
Right.
Now it's him and her. I'm out of the equation.
Right.
Completely out of the equation.
Right.
And gone. Now through the course of the investigation, it just uncovered so much horrible things. Like, of course, they're going to do the DNAs and everything. They found out all 3 of the kids. All 3 had different dads. All while she was married to her first husband, she had all 3 of these kids. Right. All 3 from different dads.
But it exposed her. It aired out her dirty laundry.
So much bad stuff.
Right. So
and she had done this to 2 other military members before at Pope that I didn't even know about.
Right.
This
stuff came out in the trial?
Well, it all came out along the way, but this is all stuff people around me were seeing.
Right.
That I was completely just looking right past it for whatever reason.
Right.
But it didn't come out in the trial necessarily. It came out more so in the
kind of in the process. Yeah. In the process. Yeah. Okay. So, but still, the result of the court-martial was you landed in the brig.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And this was this time of reflection that you're talking about.
Time of reflection, time of figuring out what in the world am I going to do. Yeah. And I was like, and I was just thinking about it. I remembered them talking about, and I was rolled in there in December of 2012, but I remember them talking about constantly the world was going to end in 2012, like the last day or whatever of 2012. It was supposed to end in 2012. And I was like, what does that mean to me right now?
Yeah.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, mine's already ended, so what difference does it make if
Right.
everyone else goes with me at that point? I mean, I knew it was incredibly untasteful to think that way, but I was just, I
Who
was,
could blame you?
I was done for. And of course, I've since been diagnosed with PTSD from a lot of those things, going through a lot of that.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was gonna do. My parents, just by the grace of God, were able to keep up with the house and take care of the house and keep everything on the up and up with the bills and everything. And then I, of course, ended up rolling out early, much earlier than expected. And I rolled out of there. There were some questions. There were some things that were brought up about the court martial specifically, and I was interviewed by a few different people along the course of that about some of the things that came out during that. One of my stepsons had started crying and busted out, and he had said that they were told to say certain things or they were going to be taken away from their mommy and placed in foster care.
Right.
And he kind of hinted to the fact that it was he kind of was looking right there at the prosecutor's side.
Right,
She
right.
was just like,
So the tactics were not
Yeah, she-
necessarily ethical.
exactly.
The ethics of the
And that was brought up, and from what I understand, I believe she's been removed from the Air Force since.
Right.
But that's neither here nor there. I mean,
Right.
either way, I think the important thing to remember, the important thing to keep mentioning, was I could have walked away from this at any point in time
Right.
prior to this.
Right.
I could have
Prior to
stopped
senses,
this.
yeah.
I could have quit. I could have walked away,
Mhm.
but I just had no idea what I was going to do if I did.
Mhm.
No idea. But I could have walked away at any point. So
Okay.
rolled out, come back in the house, and now I'm just sitting there, and I've just got my head in my hands, and I'm like, what on earth?
So what do you do now?
Where do you go? What do you do? How do you even begin? You've lost everything.
Right.
Every single thing you can lose is gone. Everything. Your career. You made it 11 years, and you're stripped. It's gone. Everything. You have nothing to fall back on. No income. I had actually attempted to file for food stamps, and they told me no. Like, how are you keeping up with this house, but you need food stamps? And I'm like, well, I'm really not. And they're like, well, really, if you were behind 3 or 4 months, maybe we would be able to make a case for that. But I was like, so what you're telling me is I need to fall behind on the home and almost lose it to get approved for that? But either way, I mean, I tried, I made it work. My dad would come and visit me. I was grateful so many times that he came and visited me. It was absolutely fantastic that he was able to come see me. And then the last time I saw him was probably August. He had come to see me, and then we had drove up to North Carolina because that's where my nephew was at.
Mm-hmm.
We had just gone up to visit him, and then he had come back down and hung out here for a while and left and went back home. In the meantime, I was still just trying to figure it out. I had no idea what I was gonna do. Trying to pull it all together, trying to get everything together, trying to get my head together. And I had put resumes out, and I wasn't getting any bites anywhere at all, anywhere at all. And so I was doing research, and of course I didn't even have internet here. I'd have to go to like a coffee shop, which was like Bixby Coffee down in Dorchester or somewhere, and use their internet just to be able to job hunt and do all this that I needed to do, check email. And like maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 days coincidentally before I got the news about my father, I was researching and found out about a site called JS Firm. They just source aeronautics professionals. And of course I'd already had my degree at that point anyway. So I put that out there and didn't really hear anything. And then my dad passed away. And I get the news about my dad's passing. But it was real early in the morning, probably 5 o'clock in the morning. My mom called me and told me that he had gone in the middle of the night, and that was it. And so she's like, yeah, you need to get home. We got you a plane ticket already. You're going to be leaving tomorrow. And I was like, okay. So I had all this day. But then as soon as like maybe 9 o'clock in the morning hit, all these things started falling into place. I had 4 different contract houses calling me for aeronautics jobs all over the place.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it went from being silent for 4 months to bam, 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 bam. Everyone's interested now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm keeping all this in mind. I'm keeping everything in mind that what everyone said. So I got on at Boeing. Boeing was great. I was just working a contract job, but I mean it was fantastic. The money was fantastic. It was much more than I was making in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
Much more. And then the contract ended with that. But then right around when that contract was ending with Boeing
Mm-hmm.
was when I had met my wife,
Mm-hmm.
Melissa. It was absolutely fantastic. I love her to death. She is the biggest, just a giant heart.
Yeah.
Is what she is. She loves everybody. She's very dedicated to her career field and helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fantastic. But it's real rocky, and it still can be rocky sometimes, but it was more rocky then because for me, it took a lot of time to realize that she was on my side.
Right.
It took a lot of time to realize that.
Right.
Just because of the past, and I hated that. I hated being that way. It was so hard.
Yeah.
Because my past experiences up to that point had led me to where I was at that point. So it took a lot of time to realize that she really was devoted to me
Right.
and dedicated to me. She is literally the last person on this planet that would ever run off with anybody else. She's just a very loving, caring person, which at one point she was everything I always wanted but didn't know I wanted it until I had it.
Yeah.
If that makes any
Yeah,
sense
that makes
at all.
perfect sense, man. That's awesome.
But it was just one of those things. I felt like it was one of those situations where it was made to be. It was just
Right.
meant to be that way.
Right.
Because now, sitting back and reflecting back, I feel like every one of these things that has happened along the way happened because they had to happen that way.
Right.
They were required to happen that way in that exact set of circumstances to lead me to the point that I'm at now.
Yeah.
It was the way that it had to go, and the reason why is because I think somewhere along the lines, call it a higher power,
Mm-hmm.
call it anything you want to call it. It could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere along the line, something on another level or another plane was saying, you've had every sign. We've thrown everything at you. We've given you every bad scenario you could have with a person.
Yeah.
And you're still choosing to move forward with this for whatever reason. So
Right.
the only thing that's going to break you apart is going to be to tear you apart.
Right.
And so I had to be torn apart I had to be burned completely down to be able to rise back up out of
Right.
the ashes like the phoenix.
Right.
And so that's where I was at. But then met her, when I met her, she was between schools and she didn't have, she didn't know what her next school was going to be at that time.
Mhm.
She had resumes and different things out there, but she didn't know. But when I met her, neither of us had a job. And so we were completely, both of us, jobless.
Mm-hmm.
But then she ended up getting a call 1st,
Mhm.
and she got a school that picked her up, which was fantastic. And then I got
Because she's a teacher.
yeah, correct, because she's a teacher. The aeronautics jobs weren't exactly coming in at that point, so I got on with the Hendrick Automotive Corps, which was absolutely fantastic. I started doing really well. I mean, I started doing Salesman of the Month every month consecutively without a problem. And then that dealership started having problems that fell apart, so I went over to another one. And I'd gone over there completely skilled, and then there was a lot of other people that were there that were just kind of, like in the civilian world, no one necessarily is so much of a go-getter as much as you'll run into in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone in the military really seems to be more focused on their job, all aspects of it. They're more of that go-getter type. But in the civilian world, I mean, you'll meet people that are fine just laying back and
Right.
sitting back and not really doing much of anything,
Right.
and sitting back, and they're fine making $4 or $5 grand a month or so. They're fine with that.
Yeah.
So I got to a point where I started averaging $25,000 a month.
Wow.
25K a month.
Wow.
That's take home. That's not sales. That's take home.
Wow.
So after you sell up to 20 cars, the manufacturer will prorate everything, and it'll go from the beginning, and they'll pay you $300 per car. And I was selling 27 to 35 cars a month. So if you imagine 300 times that,
Wow.
and then the commission, and then whatever's made on the back. So it was just, the
Goodness.
spread was insane. And I was like, I had no idea this sort of thing was out there. But
Right.
also, the hours, they were killing me.
Yeah.
The hours were absolutely killing me. But I did what I thought was the important part after living through some of the situations and circumstances that had happened to me from the past. I was doing the right thing, and I was socking a lot of it back.
Mhm.
I was pushing a lot of it back and saving a lot of it. I was still living or trying to live off, that E5 salary.
Right.
And so I still had my car I'd had from the military.
Mm-hmm.
That 98 Toyota Camry with 300,000 miles is what I was driving at
Wow.
that time. Melissa and I had gotten married. It was around Valentine's Day, actually.
Mhm.
And Melissa and I had got married. We had a real hard time after she got married. We had the loss of a couple pregnancies, so
I'm sorry.
that was really bad. We both kind of took that pretty hard. She took it a lot harder, understandably so.
Right.
Absolutely. And lost a couple of them, and then we were going through because I was in such a good position at that point. We had paid all that money for the in vitro and fertilizations and everything else, and we were losing those.
Mm.
And so we were both so scared that just nothing was gonna come, nothing
Yeah.
was ever gonna happen. She wanted it so badly, and I wanted it so badly, and then we both wanted it so badly for each other.
Yeah.
And we were trying everything we could, and she had the last one. We did the fertilizations, and then she ended up losing that one, and she had to go in for the DNC. It was about 3 months along, and so they had to go in and clean all that out, and that was real bad. But then about a month and a half after the DNC, and after all that was done, she says we're pregnant again. And so we go to the ultrasound because the problem we were having was everything was forming, but the hearts were never beating.
Oh wow.
And so could never figure it out. Still don't know why. I would assume that a lot of it probably has to do with age, because she was about 35 at that time, and I was in my 30s as well. I'm 38 now, and she's 39. So we're both kind of up there in her age.
Right.
And so we had came to that point there, and then about a month and a half after that last situation that we had, she came to me and said we're pregnant. Went and got the ultrasound, and we saw that heart beating. She said, that's a healthy heart.
Yeah.
That's a good looking baby. And they were actually saying, this is fantastic. This is exactly what we want to see. I know we didn't see that before, but this is it. This is it. So they said, gear up. We're going to do everything we can. We're going to work together, and we're going to give this everything we have.
Excellent.
Throw everything we can throw at it to help it, and eat right, and all the neonatal pills and vitamins and all that. We did all that, but in the meantime, I was saying, there's no way that I can remain in the car business and be able to be a father at the same time.
Right.
I'm not going to be an absentee dad. I didn't want to be.
Right.
I was working 90 plus hours a week.
Wow.
It was just insanity. It was just too much. And so I had it very well again, like I was saying. So what had happened was I had paid a professional resume company to write my resume for me. And they wrote my resume for me. And I got it back about a week later, and I threw it back on that JS firm.
Yeah.
And the resume they wrote, they even asked me very specific things. What are you going for? What are you specifically tailoring this to?
Right.
And I told them the career field I'm trying to go in, here's exactly what I'm tailoring it to. These guys are absolute professionals, but they cost a ton. I'm talking it cost almost $2,000 to have them write the resume. But they researched tirelessly on how to purposely get certain systems to clue in on certain words and certain things. So I'd thrown it up there, I'd clued in on it, then I got a call the following morning.
Right.
and they said, hey, this guy wants to fly in from their North American division, which is in Los Angeles, but they're actually out of London. And I was like, oh, okay. So come in, interviewed me, and I got the job, like right there on the spot. And it happened so fast, I could not believe it, because I had never, ever been in this situation in my entire life. Ever been in a situation where here's a shop, you're overseeing 3 different factories simultaneously from here in Charleston. Your main gig is going to be around here. I was running and overseeing operations and everything. It was insane. I'd never really been at that point before, doing engineering phone calls, all these different things. I never really thought it was possible. And then of course the financial stability was beyond, to a point now, like, where I wouldn't really even get up out of bed for what I was making in the Air Force then.
Right.
I mean, it's just, I feel like I've gotten so much further down the path
Right.
than that, maybe.
Right.
I guess maybe.
Which is a far cry from not being able to
Such
get
a far
McDonald's job.
cry.
McDonald's job.
And that's actually an ongoing joke in this household. I say it all the
Yeah.
time. It's like, man, I'm so glad McDonald's won't even hurt me. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I say that all the time. But I never thought I would be capable of where I'm at now, financially, the income level,
Stability,
where
yeah.
I'm at now,
Yeah.
the stability, the incredible perks.
Yeah.
My bosses are absolutely amazing. They are fantastic people.
Yeah.
They care about us so much. They were so interested in Liam and when he was born, and he was
Right,
like
which
their
is something that we
company
hadn't quite got
mascot.
into. Your wife, Melissa,
Yeah.
carried to term. Y'all had a boy.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I kind of left that part out. But yeah, so I got on with this company, and I had been on with the company for maybe I'd started with them in the middle of November, and then she ended up having our son, Liam. We actually named him William Richard Matthis, which was my dad's name. So we named him after my father. It was so weird, but it was extremely kind of scary. Like, hey, I've got this little boy now, and he's got to be taken care of, and I've never really been in this situation.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And I'd only worked with my company for a couple weeks up to that point, but thank goodness you just kind of figure it out as you go along,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
You figure it out as you
I
go
find it interesting. One little kind of nugget or a little detail that I find interesting is like at the beginning of your story, you were making these decisions, and right before transitioning into something else, right?
Yeah.
Like it was a poor decision,
Yeah.
right? A poor decision, and then made worse by a transition, or making a transition worse. But basically, like before all the moments of, all the stuff that led to that basically snowballed into your landing in the brig,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
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 There was a decision, and then there was a transition. And then there was a decision, and there was a transition.
Yeah.
And that was the snowball, right? You were making these choices, and they were snowballing, and it was just adding up against you.
Yes.
And then after you got out of the brig, and around the time you're on the day of, you apparently think there is some significance there, that your father's passing, and then your change of fortune.
I felt like up to that point, after his passing, for some reason or another, of course, very upsetting, of course, because I was so close to him. He was my very best friend in the world. So he was the guy I could tell anything to, period. I don't know if you've seen American Pie, Eugene Levy, the character he plays, where he's just cool with everything his son does. He just wants to be his son's best friend. He just wants to be there.
Yeah.
My dad was the exact same way.
Really?
Just best friends in the world.
Yeah.
We could tell each other anything. And that was particularly devastating.
Yeah.
But everything up to this point, it was almost as if I was acting out a script that was written for me, but I didn't even realize it until I was at the end that was all events that had to happen to lead to this point.
Yeah.
And anybody anywhere could be upset.
Right.
That's easy.
Right.
Anybody anywhere could be mad. Anyone
Right.
anywhere could blame everybody else.
Right.
Anyone anywhere could do any number of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I've lost a lot of that.
Right.
That anger, a lot of that disdain, a lot of that hate.
Mhm.
It has been rocky along the way. I mean, while everyone and everything was working against me, as long as you just stick with it,
Mm-hmm.
you just never ever give up, and you just hold out hope.
Right. What is that piece of advice? What is that nugget? What is that? Yeah, that nugget of knowledge. What's that piece of information that you would pass on to someone in anything? It could be related to what your experience. It could be, anything. What would that be?
I guess that would be that I was for a long time real mad about the whole situation, mad at all the players in it, mad at everyone involved in it. But I think now I'm to a point where you go through all the steps. But I think a lot of people where they make a mistake is hitting one point in these steps. The steps of grief, the steps of loss, the steps of everything else. They hit a point and then they don't go any further than that. They just get stuck in that mind frame, and it's dangerous. Your mind can be dangerous sometimes.
Yeah,
You
I
can
agree.
get lost in your own
I
mind
agree.
real easily. You can get really carried away very, very fast. Now I'm at a point now where I can look at maybe these people. I could probably even look at my ex-wife and my old command and just say, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Because there's no way without that catalyst that I would be here at this point
Right.
now. Not only I had people all along the way not just kicking me while I was down, but just stripping me of everything slowly but surely. I've been homeless, I've been broke, I've been penniless, I've been without food, I've been without running water or anything. I was showering at the gym on base just to take a shower when I needed to. And I've been at the very bottom. And I'm here at this point now where it's just such incredible freedom. I have a great love, my wife and my son, and fantastic house. Everything now, where I'm at now, is so infinitely better than everything before. And I would have been at this situation now had I not probably experienced a lot of those things.
Mhm.
I never ever would have realized how strong I really was. A person never really fully knows what they're capable of, I think, until they're forced to have to be capable of it.
Right.
There's a saying, it's kind of a bad saying, but you hear that sometimes, nut up or shut up sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially,
Yeah.
that's what you got to do. You got to.
What pushed you through that though? I mean, you just kept having hope.
I had this unnerving faith and unnerving hope that was so unexplained. People ask me all the time, how did you not just roll over? Because it's important too to not let other people get you. I mean, you've got thick skin, but it's important to just not listen. I mean, had I had listened to all the negatives in life and all the negative chatter that was going on around me, I would still be in that parking lot in my car to this day, had I listened. But everyone out there has it within them. It's all in your head. It all just depends on how you recover. That's what defines who a person is. It's how you recover from these situations, which will make you a better person. You can let that situation destroy you. You can let it, God forbid, and it's an epidemic right now with the suicide epidemic among veterans. It's a horrible epidemic right now, and I can't say that I haven't thought about it or been there, and I can't blame anybody at all that's ever. I had that same friend that talked me into joining the Air Force. He went in the Air Force too, and he got out, and took his own life.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man.
It's a horrible epidemic. You can let it get you like that if you want to, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you're letting every single one of those people along the way win.
Right.
Everyone that wanted to destroy you, everyone that told you you would never be anything, everyone that told you your life was over, your career was over, it's never the end until you say it's the end.
Right.
It's only over when you say it's over.
Right.
That's the important part.
It's important. Definitely a good thing to know. It's a good thing to keep in mind.
Absolutely. If I could recover from it, anybody could recover from that and come out better. Anybody, I know everyone's got their own unique circumstances, but I'm telling you, it's doable, absolutely. And you can even come out even better, way better than you ever thought it would be.
Right. No, I used to tell my kids this. You want to be mindful of your decision making, of your choices, of your surroundings.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You want to be mindful of it because when you get into a rut, you can find yourself making bad choices, right?
And they get out of hand.
Right. And for a lot of people, they're in a lot of people are in a bad place in their life, and they just keep making decisions that keep them in that space.
Yes.
And for them, it's tough for them to see. And for these people, it's just difficult for them to make the choices. And similar to what your experience is, that there are also probably loved ones who tried to intervene on their behalf, but it's hard to see. It's hard to see when you're in that space. It's hard to see just how much harm you're bringing to yourself. You're giving yourself.
And I think alcohol did not help.
Right, and alcoholism is another one.
Absolutely.
So what I used to tell my kids is, you want to be mindful of that, of your situation, because you want to be able to make decisions that will steer you off of a bad path.
Yes.
Because the only surefire way for change is trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma is the only surefire way to bring about change.
Yeah.
And what's unfortunate about that is that the result of the trauma, right, what happens afterwards, is not always good either. Those who are able to experience the trauma and end up on the good side of it, that it's rare.
I have to say, I am incredibly fortunate. Incredibly fortunate. And all the time I find myself, just saying, whatever, thank you so much for where I'm at. I have to be so thankful for what it is I have now.
Right. And I'm happy for you, man. I'm happy for you. I'm happy that you found someone that you can share your life with, who you don't have, you found somebody that you can share your life with that loves you and that you can care for and that you love. I'm happy that you've got yourself a family started, even after the difficulty that the both of you experienced trying to do. You're really in a good place, and I'm happy for you. When I hear stories like this, for me personally, it's hard to believe that there's not a God.
Absolutely, and that's what it felt like almost. Now that I'm sitting here looking back over everything, you're exactly right.
Right.
Because it felt like it was almost like a destiny, like it was written to be that way. But I say a prayer all the time, just thanking God all the time.
What's unfortunate about that is that not everybody gets to experience that, and it's because of that those tough times where a lot of doubt and faith comes in.
Yeah. It's easy to lose faith going through stuff.
So I realize, I can understand how some people would probably dispute what I just said, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But just for me personally, it's hard for me to doubt that God doesn't exist. And either way, I'm just glad, and I'm happy for you, and I think you've done a great job, and I think you should be proud of yourself. I think you should be very proud of yourself, and I hope that you are. I'm definitely proud of you. I'm proud to know you. So I think with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. So thank you very much for tuning in to This Way Out. Will Matthis just shared an incredible story, and I hope that someone, I'm sure someone will be able to take a lot away from your story. So I'm I'm grateful that you shared it with us. I'm grateful that you had the courage to share it with us. There was a lot of personal. It's courageous to be able to share that stuff. So I thank you for that. If you like this episode and you want to see future episodes, please subscribe. Don't forget to click the bell so that way you can see future episodes. Remember, I have a presence on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, I have my website, thislow-light.com. On the website, there's blogs, feature articles, also the copies of the interviews, and a podcast now. So This Way Out podcast is now live, and we're about 6 or 7 episodes in. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks again, Will Matthis. We'll talk to you guys later. God bless.